Hello everyone, I am J-Ho. This video coincides with the 10th anniversary of the release of Assassin's Creed Unity. This is also the 10th year that I have been exposed to Assassin's Creed. Looking back, the Assassin's Creed series has undergone a major change in gameplay. It has also experienced ups and downs in reputation. Players once gave high praise to its parent company, Ubisoft, for its products, saying that they must be top-notch. Until now, they have applauded the sudden death of the game they launched. In the blink of an eye, the game IP that accompanied me growing up. It seems that his own death now will come. The turning point of everything. It seems that this Assassin's Creed Unity released 10 years ago because of poor optimization and CG fraud. With Magnetic Field, a petty story about a man and a woman in love. In the eyes of players who are in the era of excellent 3D games, the newly released Unity is totally useless. The negative reviews for the harvest that was taken for granted back then. However, these shortcomings have become insignificant today, 10 years later. Today's gaming industry aesthetics downgrade. Political correctness enters decision-making. Various game manufacturers teach players how to play games. Thunderous news emerges in an endless stream. This has led to a crisis of confidence among players in game manufacturers that once had a guarantee of excellent products. After many comparisons, in this current environment, Unity may be regarded as a pearl in the ocean, although it was questioned when it was released. But for me, Unity plays an important role in my gaming career. So in the 10th year of its release, I wanted to draw on my experience as both a dedicated Assassin's Creed player and a parkour enthusiast. Let me share with you my views on the parkour system of this game. First, let me introduce myself. In 2014 year, I was attracted by Altair, who was wearing a white robe and flying on the roof. The original Assassin's Creed in 2007 left a deep impression on me, so I started practicing parkour in 2015, a year after I started playing Assassin's Creed. This is the 9th year now, because parkour has really changed my life, so I've always loved parkour. The starting point of this love, it was the 2014 Assassin's Creed Unity. In 2019 and 2020 years, I accomplished some of my small goals. Shot a parkour piece of Assassin's Creed cosplay. It was also successfully forwarded by Ubisoft China official. At the same time, I also participated in some offline parkour competitions and parkour gatherings. Communicated with many parkour enthusiasts. I have a lot of experience in the sport of parkour, although I can't say I'm an authority in the field of game parkour, but there are some insights. Some content is subjective. It's not to please certain people. Rather, it is some of my thoughts and understandings from playing over the years. Next, let's not talk too much. Enter today's topic. Why Assassin's Creed Unity has the best parkour system in the entire series. Series overview. First, before discussing what I consider to be the pinnacle of the series, we need to conduct an overall analysis of the development of Assassin's Creed parkour system. From Assassin's Creed first generation to the latest Mirage, over the past decade, as technology and gameplay evolve, parkour action in the Assassin's Creed series, factors that affect the parkour system, such as environmental interaction, have also changed a lot. Generally speaking, Assassin's Creed's parkour system can basically be divided into 4 stages. The main games in each of these 4 stages use the same parkour system. Assassin's Creed to Revelation is the first stage. Assassin's Creed 3 to Rogue is the second stage. Unity and Syndicate are the third stage. Origins to Mirage is the fourth stage. The characteristics of these 4 stages are clearly different. It can be clearly seen that the parkour system is closely updated with the gameplay. For example, in order to fit the RPG gameplay of the Mythology trilogy, a lot of simplifications have been made to the parkour system in order to support the puzzle elements of Assassin's Creed to Revelation. The operation of parkour actions has added some complexity and difficulty in judgment. Next, I will analyze and evaluate the parkour systems in these 4 stages based on these 3 criteria. 1. Number and fluency of parkour moves. 2. Parkour operability. 3. Map design. First, the first stage. Early Assassin's Creed parkour was called puzzle parkour. Should you jump ahead while moving? Where to go next? Whichever key you press requires a selection. Strong instant operability and feedback. At the same time, the judgment point is also more accurate. It should be emphasized that parkour in early Assassin's Creed was part of the puzzle gameplay. Many levels require you to memorize the route yourself. If you are not familiar with the mechanism, you may even get stuck. For example, the wall jump in Altair's memory in Assassin's Creed got a lot of people stuck. This is similar to games like Tomb Raider, Prince of Persia, etc. His action judgment and design also serve this purpose. It is difficult to operate with realistic parkour thinking, but as a supplementary gameplay for solving puzzles, undoubtedly greatly increases the fun of solving puzzles. Compared with excellent operability, The choice of parkour moves is quite monotonous. In simple terms, these actions are basically just climbing and precision jump. From this point of view, the parkour system of early Assassin's Creed was generally more inclined towards rock climbing, rather than parkour that focuses on obstacle crossing, although the first phase includes the main games. However, some distinctions are made in the details of each part. The difference between Assassin's Creed, the Pioneer, and the later Ezio trilogy is richer in action. Hold down the grab button while running high to perform the step vault action. Can quickly descend to the ground or run in the opposite direction. When crossing roadside stalls, dive roll and swing actions will be triggered according to different angles. Assassin's Creed can also be triggered in some places. And Revelation doesn't have that many parkour moves. The brotherhood between these two generations has a more eye-catching parkour operation. Ezio can do a swinging bar flip from the back of a horse. In terms of map design, thanks to the map selection of the early Assassin's Creed series, the city has densely built buildings, can parkour on the rooftop without falling to the ground. But Ezio's climbing speed is relatively slow. It will appear sluggish visually. Therefore, most of the Ezio trilogy on the internet adds a lot of wall jump and tic-tac moves. To increase the richness and fluidity of parkour, use the wall jump to get the highest jump possible. Avoid the poor visual experience caused by slow climbing. Starting with Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed's parkour system has undergone an innovation. Parkour operation begins to be simplified. In the previous game, you had to hold down 3 or even 4 buttons to climb and perform precision jumps. Assassin's Creed 3 just hold down the run button to automatically climb and perform precision jumps. On this basis, Assassin's Creed 3 adds a new vaulting mechanic. Allows the character to directly climb over horizontal obstacles. Replaces the Ezio trilogy when encountering obstacles head-on. A rigid mechanism where you can only jump up, step on it, and then jump down. Make the overall parkour action more smooth. At the same time, Assassin's Creed 3's parkour moves have also been enriched with the simplification of operations. Different from the monotonous climbing and precision jump in the Ezio trilogy, Assassin's Creed 3 adds a lot of parkour basic climbing actions. For example, the basic 5 jumps of parkour. Lazy vault, one-hand reverse vault, speed vault, step vault, cone vault. Besides, there are also some non-proper parkour climbing moves mixed in. And these parkour moves have a complete force process. It includes the movements from takeoff to support and then push out to land. Looks very smooth and beautiful. Complementing this is the significant increase in the character's climbing speed. From this, the actions of climbing trees and climbing ladders were derived, and the real quack climbing action highlights the protagonist's background as an indigenous person living in the forest. The innovation of the parkour system has also brought significant improvements in map interactivity. The design of the map also adds a certain amount of fun to this system, especially the most distinctive tree climbing in Assassin's Creed 3. Basically, you can parkour on the tree without falling to the ground. Buildings in the map can also be easily entered, and when you enter, it will automatically trigger parkour to quickly pass through to escape the pursuit. When parkouring in the city, in addition to horizontal obstacles, if there is a height difference on the other side of the obstacle, the climbing action can be triggered. Normally, parkour falling action similar to real-life parkour. It feels very natural to play. Not only that, a lot of scene interaction details are added during parkour. For example, when crossing the clothes drying rack, you will lean over. When parkouring on a wall, it will automatically bypass obstacles. When falling from a high place onto a narrow obstacle, you can do a step vault drop. It is consistent with the logic of maintaining the center of gravity in real parkour. However, the game camera will drift when you continuously climb over obstacles on some terrains. I don't know if it's a bug or what. Although the simplified new parkour system is a bit annoying, but the one-size-fits-all automatic parkour also has some disadvantages. Because the trigger is very sensitive and the obstacles are close together, it is easy to repeatedly take tack on the wall. When performing continuous climbing, Unable to accurately determine whether to jump onto the obstacle or flip over it greatly affects the accuracy of the operation. I want to climb over here from the front, but it was slapped onto the wall and made a series of movements. Next, let's briefly talk about Black Flag and Rogue. This may be to improve the smoothness of operation and conform to the role setting. These two games deleted most of the complex actions. Only the strategy is retained, step vault and other basic parkour moves. Because the map design is relatively open, reduce the chance of misoperation. Some map interactions have also been added in Rogue. For example, pulling the flag can quickly descend to the ground. When you enter the groove between the two walls, you will automatically parkour to the rooftop, but overall there hasn't been much change. It is worth mentioning that Black Flag has the step vault action from Assassin's Creed. Facing the railing in front of the rudder, press and hold the fast walk. When you get close to an obstacle, press run. This will trigger the step vault to cat leap. This action can easily enter the captain's room. At the end of the second stage, I have a place I want to complain about. It shares precision jump. Maybe it's because the clothes restrict me from doing big movements. Little to no movement of the arms. Because when people jump, they need to swing their shoulders and arms to gain momentum and maintain balance. So Shay's actions seem very counterintuitive. It looks like walking in space, very stiff. But there is no such problem with big jump. It really puzzles me. Unity is based on the three works in the second phase. Another parkour innovation. This game pioneered the free parkour gameplay. Parkour is no longer a gameplay that assists in solving puzzles. Instead, it is separated as one of the main gameplay. At the same time, deleted the time-limited puzzle parkour and chase battles that required backboard. Present the original parkour gameplay to players. Therefore, Unity has added a lot of parkour actions. These large and small parkour moves are combined, make the game parkour closer to the texture of real parkour, brings a strong sense of reality. I personally think Unity is an excellent system that is close to reality, thanks to an often overlooked mechanism, downward parkour. With this mechanism, the operational thinking of parkour in the game, more in line with the real parkour thinking, because downward parkour also binds the vault action. So when facing the same obstacle, many operation modes can be derived. Whether you choose to climb, then move onto other places, or falling back to the ground from a high place, or just climb over cleanly, it all depends on the player's preference. It will not cause continuous climbing over obstacles like in Assassin's Creed 3. The embarrassing situation of jumping back and forth on obstacles due to incorrect judgment, permutations, and combinations with degrees of freedom. This allows Unity to create several completely different routes in the same set of obstacles. More ornamental, the playability is also very high. Unity's parkour will be introduced in detail in the following content. I won't go into details here. Next is another work in the same vein as Unity. Syndicate. Syndicate's parkour inherits Unity's excellent mechanism, but unlike Unity, Syndicate's parkour in-game design concept, no longer the main gameplay like in the previous game. The map design becomes empty. In the case of strongly recommending the hook-lock gameplay, the original parkour system has been simplified to make it easier for novice players to get started. This simplification shows that parkour is somewhat automated. Therefore, the fluidity of parkour has been enhanced. The action connection is smoother, some of the same actions. Unity looks a bit like frame extraction. Syndicate also added a lot of transition actions, make the parkour process look more realistic. For example, when facing an obstacle of moderate height that cannot be directly climbed over, we'll make a pop vault, avoid the drag caused by cat leap. Also, when you are falling in parkour, no more lag when falling. But I think the action is still not detailed enough. Although climbing over low obstacles and falling down have become smoother, But there is a strange change in the action. That is lazy vault. The push-up movement with both hands is not completed. It's one-handed. The back looks like it's sliding over with its buttocks. And because the rhythm is not uniform when strides jumping, appears to move lightly. If it is a very far place, I will fly there directly. In some places where you can cross in one step, you stay in the air for a long time. Unity's jump distance is also outrageous, but the overall parkour speed is very close. It won't be fast or slow, so it looks comfortable. Automatic parkour is easy to use for novice players. The newly added one-click window function is pretty good. Avoid players who are not familiar with the operation, and jumping back and forth on the wall. The embarrassing situation of not being able to get through the window. It is also smooth when climbing over low obstacles. It will automatically bypass any poles that block the road, make it less likely for new players to get stuck by obstacles when playing. At the same time, some movement inertia is reduced. The landing instructions are more sensitive. This eliminates some of the stickiness. But the price of getting started easily is that the upper limit of operation is also lowered. First, there is a reduction in parkour moves. Unity's Kong Vault can be triggered on many large obstacles. Actions such as shoulder roll cannot be triggered. Arnaud and Jacob encounter obstacles of the same height. Jacob will be stuck. And Arnaud flipped over cleanly. Secondly, map design. London streets are too wide. The building height is also very high. As a result, it is impossible to use parkour as the main means of transportation like Unity. Parkour is also limited to preset routes. Therefore, the more convenient hook lock occupies the presence of parkour. The last and most regrettable place. Syndicate removed active jump because of the influence of Unity. The parkour design of this game is much more conservative. Delete the active jump mechanism that is equivalent to preventing death by falling. As a result, at many heights where you can obviously jump down and roll to avoid damage, the system does not allow players to jump. I can only climb down little by little. Some big jump moves are harder to trigger. Many of the distances that you can jump over and grab the wall at are not enough to trigger the jump. The handling of obstacles is also reduced. Contrast the revolution. Unity can proactively jump up when facing obstacles. Active jump landing. The Syndicate can only climb up and down in a methodical manner. Besides, in terms of operation, Syndicate is very similar to Assassin's Creed 3. Just hold down the run button to automatically parkour. The jump button is only used for climbing. The drop button is only responsible for falling to the ground. Compared with Unity, Unity will only perform precision jumps and bar swings at close range when holding down free run. When the character faces an obstacle, players can operate independently. Choose to climb or cross. Make the operation more precise and smooth. Syndicate's one-button automatic parkour is much more convenient, but the automatic triggering of the action is too sensitive. There are also some problems with the judgment. It is easy for the character's actions to be inconsistent with the player's ideas. Reduce the feeling of manual operation of parkour. It also weakens the accuracy of the parkour route. In the fourth stage, Assassin's Creed officially enters the RPG era. Since its origins, parkour no longer exists as a main gameplay. Instead, it appears in the game as an auxiliary tool for running maps. In order to match the freedom of the large map and the new combat mechanism, Game designers assigned most of the operation buttons to the combat system, further streamlined parkour operations. As a result, the parkour system has completely degraded. As the first work in the RPG era, Origin's parkour system returns to its original form. The overall style is similar to the Ezio trilogy, basically only climbing and precision jumping. Only certain obstacles can trigger parkour moves, but fortunately, the overall texture is good, more in line with Baek's character. I personally like the changes in Origin's actions. The climb in Origins is a standard wall run. It comes naturally when climbing smooth surfaces. In direct contrast, Unity handles wall climbing. Arnold's climbing experience on complex walls is okay. When it hits a smooth wall, it's a bit like Spider-Man. Secondly, when there is no running start. When Baek hits a wall that is higher than the character's head, I will make a monkey vault and climb up directly. Unity is to cat leap first and then muscle up to pull up. Looks a bit sluggish. Overall, what caught my eye the most was the newly added leap of faith action. When Baek turns his back to the haystack, he will do a backflip and fall into the haystack. Unfortunately, Assassin's Creed Origins removes the high-level long-distance wall jump action. It can only be easily detached from the wall at a close distance. Odyssey, Valhalla, and Mirage, there are not many features that can be analyzed in these three parts. Although Odyssey can actively trigger some horizontal obstacles to climb over, but in the later stages of the game, you won't die no matter how you jump. Just keep walking in a straight line. Few players will go out of their way to find a place to play parkour. It's just an extra, including the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadow. I don't think the parkour system will have much innovation. I guess at most it's just adding some somersaults to the Mythology trilogy. Make the character look more ninja-like. In fact, this action is the same as Arnold. His one-hand reverse drop, just the force is different. The overall parkour experience of Valhalla and Odyssey is similar, but it is a bit clumsy in action. This is consistent with the Vikings' character of wearing a lot of clothes. In terms of action, I prefer the smoothness and naturalness of the character's cat leap drop movements. The muscle up also has a complete force generating process. Good look, but in terms of operation, parkour and crouch keys are bound together. This will cause the player to control the character to encounter an obstacle and want to flip over it. The character just bumps into it or gets stuck, or you can turn over and walk in a squatting position. Very awkward and funny. Mirage's parkour is basically a slightly modified version of Valhalla's. Not much has changed, but without the clunky feeling of Valhalla, the operation is much more sensitive. It also fits Bassium's personality, but the movements are a bit awkward. The strides jump is very stiff. The absorption is very strong. The propaganda says that it returns to the style of the first-generation Assassin, but the action fluency is not even as good as Origins at this moment, as stiff as Assassin's Creed First Generation. Map design and parkour system complement each other. Only one of them cannot bring a good in-game parkour experience. Mirage and Syndicate are two prominent examples. Although Syndicate is supported by Unity's parkour system, but the map design is too empty. The overall experience is average. Mirage relies on excellent map design. Make the simple system as good as other works in the series in terms of parkour experience. This is how the protagonist can parkour on the roof without falling to the ground. If Arnold or Jacob were to parkour on this map, they might perform better. Some controversial points about the parkour system in Assassin's Creed Unity. Although Unity's parkour system is not perfect, but from my personal point of view, its overall quality is the best in the Assassin's Creed series. Before I further elaborate on my point, in response to the few issues criticized by many gamers, I want to share my opinion. I think feel is subjective to most people, so it cannot be used as the only criterion. Make a judgment. From a parkour enthusiast's perspective, I think the advantages of the Unity parkour system are multifaceted and multidimensional. Overall, the faults outweigh the merits. Apart from the subjective feel factor, I think there are 4 reasons that Unity's parkour system stand out in the series. 1. The action design is rich enough, very advanced. Even Mirage is still reusing Unity's action materials. 2. Map interaction design is also the most enriching one in my personal experience. Parkour can be performed on obstacles of different heights, angles, and types. The degree of freedom is quite high. 3. The operation concept is very similar to real parkour. The same pile of obstacles of different heights. In the process of moving, you can combine a variety of different actions to climb over. Moreover, different ways of playing can be derived according to the characteristics of the obstacles themselves, similar to the derivative attack in Monster Hunter. This excellent operating system, I think even in other games, you can still experience free map traversal and parkour at the same time. Unity is not limited to various protrusions and bars on the wall like other works. When crossing various obstacles head-on, it can also fully demonstrate the freedom of its parkour system. 4. Parkour downwards. This is also a unique mechanism of Unity and Syndicate. Other works in the series can only be simply jumped down or climbed down little by little. Thanks to this mechanism, Unity is currently the best choice for me, a game in which I imagine jumping around in a city when I was a kid. Next steps. Regarding some common controversial points about Unity on the internet, I would like to put forward my opinion here. Many players have several common problems after playing Unity. 1. Can't get in through the window. 2. Getting stuck on the table. 3. Arnold's parkour is like flying. First of all, I would like to emphasize again, the feel of the hand is a matter of opinion. Some people like the real-time operation feeling of the previous game, where all operations need to be completed by themselves. Some people like the feeling of running freely in the map in Unity. So no discussion here. I think part of the reason for these three problems is major changes to the mechanism. So many players are not familiar with Unity's parkour. For players who are used to one-click automatic climbing parkour, not very user-friendly for beginners, and many operations do not have complete prompts. Simply holding down 3 buttons to parkour upwards is not a very good experience. Let's talk about window opening first. The window prompts in the game do not fully tell players what to do. You cannot smoothly complete the window operation by just pressing the prompted button. They will hang on the edge and twitch for a long time or crawl back and forth, but can't get in. This is indeed because the game guidance is not sufficient. But I don't think there are any serious problems in operation and judgment. Unity's window flipping function can trigger the window entry operation by pressing the squat key and the direction key. No additional operations are required. Before entering the window, you can release the running key and other keys that are easy to operate by mistake. This way the judgment will not go wrong. Here I use the perspective tool mods. The operations are all mirrored and blind. In this case, as long as you are familiar with the operation, it can still complete the window operation at 3 different angles. Then there is the problem of the table legs being stuck. Downward parkour is not only useful when falling from the roof to the ground. In fact, if it is stuck on a table or obstacle, just keep pressing down and run to land. Here I will demonstrate how to escape in a complex scene. When I first started playing, I also felt that Syndicate felt better than Unity. But after the Great Revolution, start running full collection. By the way, when studying the fire protection gameplay, I found that there were many places I was not familiar with before. If it's not really a bug that makes the character model stuck in place, many times, getting stuck on the wall is mostly because there is no judgment point on the wall. In this case, if you can't climb up, I found that the character twitched twice in place without any response. In fact, you can change the route or press down to parkour to land. I want to interrupt here. A little bit of justice for Unity. Many people think that the Ezio trilogy has the most parkour operations, but in fact, this is the impression flaw. Unity's parkour operation is not much less than that of the Ezio trilogy. Wall back jump, jump, and wall grab can all be triggered, but the Ezio trilogy has active capture. The interactive feeling in operation is stronger. If you do some really long jumps and grab onto the wall, the perspective effect is the same as Unity. Of course, Unity cannot perform some operations without a decision point. For example, jumping sideways against the wall and then grabbing the wall. At this point, it is replaced by sideways climbing. Finally, many people joke that Arnold is a flying man. In fact, Ezio's jumping distance is no worse than Arnold's. Sometimes I even skip ahead. Likewise, Jacob's jump distance is also ridiculous, but only Arnold is called the flying man. In my opinion, the main reason why parkour is like flying is that many people are used to holding down 3 buttons for the whole process of upward parkour, so much so that the judgment is very exaggerated. For example, you can jump directly into the window opposite. The second is the action where the character dives down to grab a pole or a rope. Of course, I know this is to add some other things besides leap of faith, an action that allows the player to quickly descend to the ground. Furthermore, the design of some jumping actions is not very reasonable. It looks like it's flying at low altitude. For example, in this action, both hands are shaking fists when jumping. It doesn't look like he jumped over on his own. It's like being ejected by an external force, like stepping on a springboard or a trampoline. And this very awkward cat leap. Some actions are fine in design, but the effect presented in the game is a bit stiff and awkward. At a great distance, the corner is directly moved and absorbed, no height fluctuations. It also seems a bit stiff when jumping continuously. Apart from these unreasonable animation designs, the overall action design is still very real and smooth. But to achieve this effect, players need to practice operation by themselves. Find the right time to jump and stride. Confirm your thoughts and actions before taking the next step. Only in this way can the parkour in the game present a realistic effect. The advantages of the parkour system in Assassin's Creed Unity. After addressing some common controversial points, you want to explain why Unity has the best parkour system in my mind. First of all, for those who have not received parkour training, the understanding of space is relatively elementary. For example, IMAX in London or barrier-free design near some buildings. When ordinary people see these ramps or low walls, the first reaction is to follow the design route, play his role. But in the eyes of parkour enthusiasts, these high and low obstacles next to it are the best practice venues. Every parkour enthusiast has a different style of thinking. The parkour moves and route choices you make will also be different. Here is my personal example. I am a tracer practicing the parkour style with the Spanish God team. This genre focuses on obstacle crossing and action connection. Their parkour videos don't have many difficult somersaults and turns. Most of them are very basic parkour moves and somersaults, but the proficiency is very high. It can show the stretching and smooth beauty of parkour movements when crossing obstacles. Similar to GOP, there is also the British Storer team that takes on the challenge of crossing complex terrain. Different from the soft and smooth aesthetics pursued by GOP, Storer has a very hardcore, powerful and authentic parkour aesthetic. The free-running athletes, led by Jason Paul and Pasha from Team Farang, most of them have basic parkour skills. At the same time, he has gorgeous and amazing somersault skills and extraordinary creativity. Integrating breaking, gymnastics, and street fitness into parkour make the gameplay between parkour and obstacles more diverse. It is worth emphasizing that there is no superiority or inferiority between these styles, just personal preference. There's no need to put one down to lift another up. Back to the topic. Parkour in reality is connected by large and small movements. Therefore, when practicing repeatedly on similar terrain, I might choose a completely different route and combination of moves to make it more interesting. This kind of thinking can also be brought into the game. First of all, because of the characteristics of Unity's parkour system, parkour gameplay based on obstacle crossing, it can fully reflect the richness of Unity's actions. Parkour that simply walks in a straight line is also very entertaining, rather than being limited to horizontal bars on the wall, etc. Unity has a rich approach to dealing with obstacles. Different angles and heights will trigger different actions. For example, this obstacle is made up of several wooden barrels. When climbing over from the front, only the step vault action will be triggered. When climbing from the side, this will trigger Kong vault or dive roll. Another example is the flower beds on the roadside. Normally, only sliding or hurdle actions will be triggered. When the ground is uneven and there is a height difference, take off from a high drop, it can trigger Kong vault, etc. If there is a bench in front of the obstacle, it will also trigger a special roll where you jump by stepping on a stool, etc. For two platforms with inconsistent front and rear height differences, depending on the height of the jump and the operation, you can also trigger a variety of different falling actions. Unlike the previous work, Unity's crossbar is no longer limited to fixed movements. In the previous game, the circular rod was used to trigger the bar swing action. The square bar is used to trigger precision jump and climbing actions. In Unity, whether it is a round rod, a square rod, a rope or a straight lamp, can trigger climbing, precision jump, and bar swing autonomously. By the way, start with Unity. The character can swing back and forth on a horizontal bar. It is important to mention here, there are many great revolution parkour videos on the internet. Precision jump, wall jump, and back jump are used to increase the richness of parkour routes and movements. So it appeared in a small piece of three-dimensional terrain. The phenomenon of up and down parkour rarely trigger parkour vaulting moves, more on wall climbing and precision jumps. It's obvious, this is done with the game mindset. It is very similar to the traditional Assassin's Creed parkour concept. In my opinion, Unity's parkour can be the same as real life. Complete a set of obstacle course according to my idea. This is not possible in other works in the series. If this parkour system is put into the three-dimensional map of other games, maybe it has good performance. The second is operation. Unity has a more detailed division of operations. Upward parkour involves moving from a low place to a high place, and long-distance movement. Free running involves moving short distances horizontally. Downward running involves more than just moving from high to low and climbing over obstacles of different levels. Let's talk about upward parkour and free running first. Holding down the run button will only work if you are at close range and at the same level. Perform some simple strides, swing to precision, cat leap, etc. And when the player holds down the upward parkour, the judgment point will become very far away. The movements will be relatively clean and neat. When facing several consecutive obstacles in the first round, press and hold to run to simply cross. Press and hold up to parkour and cross the obstacle in the middle. Jump directly onto the obstacle behind. In addition, facing obstacles of different heights, press and hold up to continue climbing. Just hold down run to land on a closer obstacle. Same reason, jumping from a lower point to a higher point. Holding the run key alone will only trigger cat leap and then climb up. If you hold down the upward parkour, you will jump from a low place to a high place very cleanly and accurately. It may seem exaggerated, but it is possible in reality. The same is true for downward parkour. In addition to the function of quickly descending to the ground, many complex terrains can be pressed down by the whole car. Downward parkour. Facing an obstacle that is only one head taller than Arnold, most of them can directly trigger the climbing action. Terrain with inconsistent height differences between front and back can also trigger normally, similar to the real monkey vault and monkey vault drop. On certain terrains, you can even combine parkour moves similar to those in real life, like cone vault to precision. Lazy vault to precision. Reverse vault to precision, etc. Active jump. Although you can't jump in any direction like in the Ezio trilogy, but when you encounter some places where the parkour route has poor terrain or is too slow, you can jump directly to cross this route, approach the next obstacle faster. You can also jump ahead to control the distance, to achieve a smoother effect. This is the same as real parkour. When you encounter terrain that is not suitable for the action, generally, I would choose to jump directly to connect to the next action. After getting familiar with the mechanism, just before the next action, simply think about what you're going to do next. Release the extra buttons appropriately. Adjust the angle. The rest of the actions are triggered by the system. You can complete a set of smooth and beautiful parkour operations. The hand feel will become more comfortable. There's one more thing that I think can be icing on the cake. It is a precision jump to step vault of the generation. Unity jumps from a to B and then falls to C in terms of action connection. In the original version, this mechanic allows directly crossing over B from A and landing on C. Very close to the feeling of real parkour, very smooth. If Unity also joins this mechanism, parkour will be more diverse, whether in action or operation. Finally, the richness of action. Unity uses motion capture, so there are a lot of parkour moves. Each obstacle can trigger at least 2 or 3 actions. Here I will briefly list some parkour moves for your reference, and obstacles that can be triggered, including, but not limited to, the lazy vault will be triggered when climbing over low obstacles. Speed vault. Shin slide and other actions. When climbing over a short, the high obstacle will trigger the monkey vault. Step vault. When climbing over a long, low obstacle, will trigger sliding. Step vault. Hurdle and other actions. When flipping over a long distance and a high obstacle, will trigger the dive cone vault. Dive roll. Climbing without a running start or a wall will trigger the two-hand lazy vault. The lazy vault drop will be triggered when dropping. Step vault drop. Monkey vault drop. One-hand reverse vault and a hand reverse vault. The hand reverse vault is usually triggered at places with a high drop. Can trigger wall jump when on a wall. Wall back jump. Wall jump to 170 degrees. Cone vault jump and other actions. There are also 4 different entry actions for entering the window. Even obstacles that are not as high as your calf have corresponding simple leaping movements, and big and small jumping movements. Climbing action. Turning action. Of course, there is also the most amazing action at E3 that year. Bar swing to 170 degrees cat leap. Its action richness can be seen. Here is some introduction. Fifth vault, lazy vault and hand lazy vault. All are lazy vault categories. The difference between monkey vault and cone vault is, monkey vault is to support the obstacle with your hands before climbing over it, usually climbing over close obstacles. Cone vault is to jump up first and then call the obstacle, usually climbing over long distances. The following are some of my personal subjective thoughts. In fact, the action can be more diverse. With a running start, when you encounter this very long and high obstacle, can trigger a double Kong. Personally, I think it looks cooler and more realistic than sliding. I'm a little confused about the animation of Kong Vault. I don't know if the action designer wanted to make the action more exaggerated, rotated the lower body of the Kong Vault action 45 degrees, and lifted high. The normal Kong Vault is actually pretty nice too. In fact, Ubisoft seems to like this step-on climbing action very much. Even in Valhalla, I still use this move. The sliding and step-on actions are the most commonly used. I personally think it's cumbersome and not pretty. Maybe it was to highlight the immaturity of the ancient assault-inspired techniques. Finally, the animation speed of some parkour actions is adjusted strangely. For example, Lazy Vault. It would be better if the parkour animation could be like the third generation. Disadvantages of the parkour system in Assassin's Creed Unity. Of course, Unity is not perfect. The first is the sticky feeling that many people complain about. This is because Unity's actions have inertia, and the action cannot be interrupted. In the previous game, you could jump in the opposite direction immediately by just kicking your foot. Can't do it in Unity. Must wait until he finished climbing. You can only do wall jump after you have a firm grip. The second is the judgment problem. Same as before, climbing through windows and jumping onto tables are actually related to operations. I think the biggest problem is in tournaments. I have also played a lot of tournaments solo. There are 2 points where the judgment is obviously problematic. There is a rope between the 2 platforms. You can jump onto the rope from here, but if you jump from the other side, you will go straight over the rope, absorbed to the opposite table. This is a fixed judgment, greatly affects the accuracy of operation. The most serious problem is still on these ropes. Want to jump onto the pillar, can only jump from another pillar or platform. Otherwise, even if you aim at the pillar, it will also be attached to the rope at the back. Then when I was parkouring on the rooftop, many chimneys have the strong agglomeration points. As a result, when you want to jump to the middle, you will always be attached to the top of the chimney. The other is the place where the judgment points are very dense. The parkour experience will be greatly discounted. Places like slums, there are many inexplicable small judgment points. Just running will slow you down for no reason and get stuck. Press and hold to jump and it will stick everywhere. Finally, there are some small bugs that still exist. For example, the model of the sliding cart in place climbs in the air, shot by a gunman while climbing a wall, or hanging in the air and unable to come down, etc. Conclusion. All in all, Unit's parkour requires proficiency to get positive feedback. It's not like other works in the series. It's very comfortable to play at the beginning. Although Unity has received mixed reviews, people who like it very much. Those who don't like it think the revolution is worthless. Unity is a pity. Because of rush sale, a lot of content lacks polish. Bugs big and small, feel problem. Factors such as the disaster of the first launch, covering up the advantages of Unity. The foundation is still excellent. Advanced parkour system. It was only gradually discovered many years later. To me, the parkour games in the Assassin's Creed series all have their own unique features. I feel differently about each generation. You can't just say who is the best and who is the worst. but in terms of comprehensive attributes, Unity is the best for me. Today's Unity also has a lot of mods to improve the gaming experience. For me, just need the mods for cloth and CG suits. It's enough to meet my needs. Plus Unity's excellent art. Let me do nothing, just parkour aimlessly in the city. Appreciate Arnold's parkour style. It's enough to play for a whole day. Finally, I hope that after watching my video, can reduce prejudice against Unity. I also hope that everyone is willing to run on the streets of Paris again. Finally, thank you to the audience who watched this. A special thanks for your help. The production wasn't easy. It took 3 months to complete. I hope you can like and leave comments.